Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know we all are in different times and time zones these days. It's always, fun and pleasure for me to come and participate in these conferences. Sometime as a speaker, sometime as I watch and listen to other session. So it's a great way to, I think, learn and share. One topic that I'm passionate about these days from the tech side is all this process optimization. And why is that? Because to me, is when we all work in corporations, small corporations, big corporations, and we talk about, hey, what processes do we have in our how do we work with each other within the department, across the departments. And the reality is, over a period of time, as organizations get bigger, larger, spread across internationally, and have multiple integrations in place from tech standpoint, the goal of process improvement or process optimization become very complex and very hard to do. So this is what I'll try to demystify for us. What is process? What are the different the methodologies exist there, and I'll share some of the things that I think some new ideas specifically around using AI and ML capabilities, and leave you guys with some of the best practices on how to think about it, how to go into this journey. Depending on where you are and where your organization is. So very quickly, if you think about how, like if you look at the world today, how the processes are created and optimized, I'm sure in your organization, doesn't matter whether you use SaaS products or non-SaaS product, processes are there. Sometimes they are just on papers. And here's a list of some of the common methodologies you might hear, Kaizen, Six Sigma, value stream mapping. And this list is not complete in any way, but just wanted to, share this because all these, the traditional business process management, a lot of companies have built businesses around that and have large practices that they think about supply chain, right? Supply chain, we all are experiencing all this, the pressure on the supply chain, and how now if you are a supply chain manager, how you can really stay on the top of all the supply chain issues. Hey, this is a supplier issue. Is this is a ship getting stuck somewhere in China, or I'm just picking up a couple of recent example, or this is a bottleneck on the landing ports that we have, or is this a trucking driver shortage issue and whatnot. So I think everybody is kind of looking for better ways to have transparency into what's happening across our processes. And what can we do about how can we keep our processes lean? How can we be more proactive whenever we see that, hey, there is a disruption is about to happen in supply chain? What is our alternative? If one supplier is not able to deliver, what is our kind of nearest and best option? So we'll dive into some of kind of these things, and I'll show you the techniques that my company, Servicenow, because we build enterprise scale SaaS applications, how we help our customers in optimizing their processes, their IT process, their customer service process, and that doesn't matter, in our organizations, processes are everywhere. So Murthy covered this well. I think the two things that I'm really passionate about is my product management work, like building products. And then the second thing is I'm a big evangelizer of health and fitness. So in various different forms, I've written books. Recently, I was recognized as Fit India champion by the Indian government. So the idea is, hey, how can we raise awareness? Specifically, I see this is a big issue in tech space where I work in. A lot of people, in very early, they're building a back pain, shoulder pain, and more importantly, the mental health. So that's what a lot of people are having issues with the COVID situation and even the post-COVID now. So yeah, this is not a fitness session. I'll stay on track for process optimizations and what are some of the novel techniques that are coming up and have matured. So next couple of slides, I'll go very quickly just to set the stage for us, like what is a process, what is a workflow. So let's dive in. So process is just a set of activities. If your financial team has to approve, the purchase order or deliver the payment. So think of this as a set of activities. There are different stakeholders, each of them do their work, and then the value is actually that particular task being delivered on time. Then there's another term that you might hear specifically in the, I think in the SaaS world now more and more is the workflow. So one is, hey, I defined this process in a PowerPoint or widget, doesn't matter. Now, how can I bring this process to life? And that's where these workflow-based product comes into play, which allow you to attach those work items to the process so that your delivery can happen both from the front end side, the front office or the back office or even anything in between. So let's take a look at two quick examples to solidify our understanding here. So example one is this talking about the process part. So in this one, the 4 bullet points that I put in here. So think of you're a patient, you want to order something, medication, you fill out that form. Your pharmacy is receiving that request. The request is processed, and then you get notified. So this a set of activities that you define that is process at a high level. But there is a lot of other things that happens to make the outcome happen for a given process, and that's where the workflow part comes in. Because when you submitted the request, somebody they'll look at your request, managers, dispatches, assign it to the right person who is doing the fulfillment. So there's a lot of things, kind of the tasks happen depending on type of the request, and that's where these workflow thing comes into play. If you look at both process and workflow together, so this is how you one way you should think about it. One is you have one process and then you have many other processes which are interconnected. So think of procure to pay, order to cash, supply chain process I talked earlier. So these processes can become very interconnected, and the problem or I think the optimization challenge becomes bigger when there are multiple departments involved in the fulfillment of those sort of activities. And that's where the need of workflow that, hey, if let's say, I'll give you one example from our world, Servicenow side, employee onboarding. When you join a company, there are many things has to come in place at the right time for you. Make sure your laptop is there, which is done by IT. Make sure your desk is ready if you go to office. So there's a facility request. Make sure all your paycheck and everything is set up. That is the financial request, any sort of immigrations. Then you have so the point is those processes become intertwined. They become interdependent on each other. And if you see, each of the teams are doing their own set of work. So the point I'm trying to bring across here is process is just not a set of step like work goes into in progress, somebody works on to resolve. No, many teams work in parallel, and that's how the end result comes together. So the question becomes, hey, how can we think about optimization of these processes in today's world, where is more and more data lives on the cloud system? So what I hear very often is the three main pain points when you think about optimization. So first is the very obvious question is, okay, we have this given process. How do we identify or where we should optimize, right? I understand we have this process, but do we know where the optimization opportunity? So that's the one big question. Traditionally, you hire a business process consultant that comes to you, to help you out, assess people, monitor how your teams are kind of working, draw some, blueprint diagram, and will give you the recommendation. But that is non-scalable, and you end up spending a lot of money. The second is there are a lot of tools that coming up, that we have, of course, our analytical stack. You can have different KPIs to monitor all your, how is your customer satisfaction working? How is your on-time delivery and things? But those are individual checkpoints. And to me, those are the operational indicator. They still doesn't give you the, where is the bottleneck in the process? Is it a people related? Is it a process related? Is it a tool issue? So that's why I think this the lot of tools, even if they combine together, as a user, I'm still struggling to find out. And the third thing is when we talk about change, and this is I think the big elephant in the room. Sometime when you think about, let's say, a change which involve both process and people, it's not easy. I mean, we honestly, we all as a human don't accept change very fast. So that human angle, how do you bring in those stakeholders? How can you take a more lightweight approach and kind of bottom up and the top down approach to bring alignment, and then really communicating that why we are doing that change. Okay, so far I've been talking about kind of high level, and then we'll go into a little bit of more in details, like the how part. I'll talk about some of the models that are becoming useful, some of those ML models. And we will look into this journey of you have this process XYZ. How do we discover that process with push of a button? The second is what sort of analysis you do, where do you have process inefficiencies? How do you look at the root cause analysis? And then you make your optimization change. And then the last point is also important, is it's not like you do it once and then forget about it. It has to be a continuous optimization, which means you need to think about how you will do some process level monitoring at an ongoing basis and become more proactive. So one of the technique, along with the let's say reporting analytics, that if you combine your set of KPIs that you're already measuring, and then if you can get a Google Map-like view of your business process, then it becomes very interesting analysis to look at. And one of the techniques that became very popular there is process mining, because what it does is it looks at all the event logs and footprint that are left behind by those processes and workflow we talked about earlier. And it automatically map out the process for you. So think of, I mentioned Google Map view on your business process. What do you do when you look at the Google Map? Hey, I have to go from here to San Francisco. I can take one-on-one, I can take, 280. There are multiple paths, and sometimes, you see which path is more optimal for you. So it's a similar kind of, the analogy you can apply on your process. People take many different workarounds to get the work done. And then the question becomes, hey, which path is more optimal? Which path is not optimal? Where can we apply automation? And where we should kind of remove those inefficient process path or the variations. So the process mining is one, if you haven't looked at it, I highly recommend. I think this technique is not new, but just like all the AI and ML things, this has improved and matured a lot because the more and more data quality is there, and it's easier to construct that process map within minutes, which used to take a few months by a process consultant. This one I mentioned earlier. I think it has to be when to deal with the specifically the people side of the angle. You have to look for both from the top down, make sure, hey, this is what we want to achieve. Is our goal is to reduce, let's say, improve customer satisfaction. Then that should be your driver. If your goal is to look at delivery time in some of those supply chain or service management processes, then that should be. And then really kind of looking from what are the pain points that people have based on the footprints on the cloud systems, as well as the kind of activities that or the workaround they will have to do on their end user or desktop and their devices. Okay, so looking at the clock, I'll go a little fast here. A bunch of things I want to touch on. The first couple of them are very important, and the good thing is the industry has made a lot of progress in these. And so one, the thesis there is that on one side we are building a lot of tools that can automate. You can have chatbots, you can have RPA, you can have direct ML-based decision models. But I think that before you go on and throwing out automation on a process, what is the number one question we should be asking is that do we know where to apply automation? That's the first part of that question. The sub part is this the right place to automate? And then do we understand the complexity of that process before applying an RPA or any sort of bot automation? And that is very important because if you Google that, the ROI from automation, it's I think that what people are saying is it's very hard to justify. And part of the reason is that we throw automation without understanding the complexity, without understanding that this is the right place. Maybe, hey, this part of the process is better done by just a business rule or better done by human. There is no point in unnecessarily saying, bot is the way to go. So that's kind of I think the analysis or the question asking should happen within your team before you deploy automation. So one of the technique that we have used is around automation, and I think we're seeing a great feedback from customer is this intent-based discovery. So how it works is so it's a kind of unsupervised clustering technique. So in our case, like in Servicenow, we have a lot of data, like your IT tickets data, your customer support data. And those, if you look at those records, you have short description and like text data, right? And now there's a huge volume coming in. And by looking at those tickets data, the problem statement we started looking at, hey, can we identify from those 500,000 tickets that what are the kind of the theme there or the cluster there that we can automate? So that was the first step, but just clustering it in itself doesn't make it more contextual. The second step we took is we defined specific set of intent. Is like, hey, like in our IT case, what are the top 10 regions in IT space or the top 10 issues in IT? If we can resolve those, you know what? That's what the 70% of the ticket volume is. And that's where we started to define this intent. Is like password reset. We know 20% of the volume all IT teams get, it is related to password reset. So why can't we automate that? But the question is, can we detect how many of those password reset incidents are, how those incidents are being fulfilled today, and then think about what is the right automation tool we should apply. So in this screenshot, you see the automation opportunity in here. I don't know if it's small to read here, but for example, if I look at the first line item where my mouse is, 44,000 records that are related to the the agent request, and then we also take a step further that these can be automated using a virtual agent that we have for customers. So I think this way of looking at identifying what is the opportunity, where it exists, and then guiding your customer further, what tool to use, that's what customers are looking for, because then it's easier for them to make a business case, have conversation with people that this is why we are doing it, and it really helps in the people angle part. Root cause analysis is another obvious one, because whenever you see those process inefficiency in your given process, the question becomes, hey, can we identify some of the leading drivers? Is it a specific to a location? Is it specific to a team, or is specific to a vendor? So here also, I think there's a bunch of RCA models. I think it depends on the data, which one you want to use. The one that works well for our data set is basically, again, looking at those the text in those records, and then dividing the text into two parts. One is an suboptimal path, or like a bad path and a good path, and then trying to see what are the correlations and a bit of causation there. And then when you look at a process and it's like, hey, show me the analysis, that's where you can show what are the leading drivers behind those process inefficiency. And then and to me, the people ask is like, hey, can we really do the causation? Probably not, but you can lead to the causation through this process, because you see this is where you have a lot of loopback happening in your process. You look at the root cause analysis, then you drill down into one particular path, 80-20 analysis rule. It's like peeling the onion, and then you read closer to the areas where you should be talking about we need to improve that. Predictions, I think anytime we talk about ML, prediction is, I think, the number one value prop it brings. And I think similarly, in process world also, can we predict whether this process is going to breach SLA, or can we predict this delivery will be late, and so that you can become more proactive. And the good thing is when you have this process level data, you can understand from the past behavior, because you know that this set of tasks were delayed because they took this particular path in the process. And when your new incoming volume that is coming in, let's again take the IT example, you can see this past ticket when they went from this assignment group to this team, this assignment group, and then because it was related to network, it ended up breaching SLA. And now if your new tickets are on the same path, you can easily identify those and flag those out and inform the manager. Manager becomes proactive and avoid the SLA breach scenario. Yeah, so I think this is where, just to give you it shows you how the data flows between all your process step, where it's really moving very slowly. So you can see where is the bottleneck happening between those records, and you can animate these. I mean, between these paths, and that makes it easier to identify bottleneck. That makes it easier to identify whether it's this a resource issue. And so, for example, let's assume these are your two support team, and all the volumes is coming in. And then you see, hey, in one path, there's 80% volume going in. So probably we should either think about adding one more people here. So that goes into that, resource optimization angle. And I think in a supply chain like scenario, this becomes really, really useful. Yeah, a bit of more details on how you can think about some of these prediction capabilities. So again, you look for the cases that had a long cycle time in the past, and then learn from that, and then apply that learning onto all the new real-time incoming tasks, and inform the user. So I think this is pretty much my last slide here. And the point I want to bring home here is when we think about process optimization, it's not just about applying automation. I recommend people, whenever I talk about it, that you should think about first is understanding what's happening, and then is it a process improvement issue first before you apply automation? Because if you can reduce the variation in your process, then your automation ROI will increase for sure. The second is if it's related to your team, then you should be thinking about, is it a skill issue? How can we coach and train them? Because if a lot of people are reassigning their ticket that comes into their queue to somebody else, which means either it ended up in the wrong queue or they don't have the skill to resolve those tickets. So that's, I think, very important we are seeing. And then, of course, once we know, okay, my people are trained, my processes are simplified, then you look into what are those manual tasks that are going through a simple set of steps. Those are, I think, your low-hanging fruit and easy to automation. And anytime our customers take this approach, they get their automation ROI increases significantly. Improving the tool itself, sometimes we become so biased that my tool is great or that tool is great, and once we learn a tool, we don't want to retire that because there's a learning curve. I think that is a mistake. You all should be looking at, is this tool really serving my purpose for what we want to do in the next 12 months or next 3 years, kind of looking the long term. And the last one is, I see sometime missed, number 5 here, is asking the question that, is this process step really necessary? Because I think we talk about too much on let's automate it, but sometimes you're wondering that maybe that step is not necessary. So that's the best way to optimize the process, if you can remove that step, because then you don't need automation, right? So yeah, I think I'll end with this view here. When you think about optimizations, it's because it's an analytical technique. End of the day, when no matter whether you use process mining, AI, ML, doesn't matter. It's all like bringing visibility, bringing predictions. The way you should thinking about it is the analytics and insight for people who are doing the operational work, which we call it analytics on workflow, which means, hey, this what happened in the past. Show me how was my CSAT, how was my revenue or whatever KPI, doesn't matter. But the second thing is, as the work happening, you also want to provide visibility right there and then, kind of an action engine if things are not working well. So that is analytics in workflow, where the work is happening. You bring right there contextual help. If your support agent is talking to a customer, is like, hey, did you know this customer is unhappy? We did the sentiment analysis. What is the next guided best action for that agent? So yeah, I think again, looking holistically, asking those questions is, should we remove the process steps? Should we automate? Should we train people? And then using some of the techniques I shared, root cause analysis, prediction capabilities, finding automation opportunities. And I think of this as a journey, and always show before and after state. So in terms of the value realization, this is where we were. We did these optimization opportunities, and after 30 days, this is where we are. Awesome. So that's the I think what I wanted to share.